Today we're going to be making chapattis, a plain simple one and also a spiced version that is similar to Thepla. This is my own spice mix. So in this bowl I've got 1 cup of wholemeal flour. It's also known as chapatti or atta flour, that's A-T-T-A flour. And you can get that in some of the supermarkets nowadays, or your local health food store. You get 3 varieties. You get white, medium and brown. The medium is like a 50-50 best of both, and this is what this is. It's really simple. I'm going to add salt, oil and water. So I've got, and that goes in. This measure for the oil, and this is a vegetable oil rather than an olive oil. It's about between half a teaspoon and a teaspoon of oil, and that's all you really need to make this flour. There's no yeast in this, it's an unleavened bread, excuse my words. So we've got those 2 ingredients. I've got here about 500 grams of cooling hot water. We don't need it all in there, we just need to bring this dough together and then leave it to rest. So that's what we're going to do. Slowly start adding some water. You want it cool enough to be able to touch it. Just let it cool down a bit. The back, I've got some extra flour that we're going to use for the counter later, but because I have overwatered this, I'm just going to sprinkle a tiny bit of flour over that and just bring that together so it's not too wet, the dough. Actually, there's a couple of dribbles there, and I just mean dribble. I'm using the spoon because I'm very bad at pouring stuff out. Over pour. It's a little bit of oil just to finish it off and make sure it doesn't stick to the bowl while it rests. So there's our chapatti flour, and I'm just going to leave that to rest. With a lid on for 20 minutes. I'm going to do a very similar process again. Put that aside. Add another cup of flour. And this is going to be a spiced one, so you want a little bit extra salt in here. So that's my salt. This is a half teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to add a bit extra, so this is a slightly heaped half teaspoon. Compared to the other one, which was more of a flat one. That's half teaspoon of salt. Then I'm going to add, I've got ajwan seeds. I'll do a bit more research and I'll add that in as a cut take of what they are. But if you look at them, I hope you can see that there. They, akin to dill seeds, are really good for digestion. So to this mix, I'm going to add 1 large pinch, so about half a teaspoon again of ajwan seeds. Crushed chili flakes, 1 large teaspoon of crushed chili flakes, because these are going to be spicy. I'm going to add 2 because me and the husband like them a little with a bit of a kick. So I've got chili, ajma, pop that down, that's my stand. And to that, in my spices, I'm going to add, I'm going to use the same measures so you know what I'm doing. That's a half teaspoon. I'm going to add half a teaspoon, just rounded off, of turmeric and cumin seeds. So we've got 1 large teaspoon of cumin seeds. So chili powder, turmeric, cumin seeds, ajma, chili. I'm not going to add any more chili to that, but I think that is enough. That will give it a nice colouring and a nice flavouring. I've got some frozen in a packet in the freezer. Fenugreek seeds. You can add spinach, not fenugreek seeds, fenugreek leaves that I've chopped and frozen. So that is just going to go in. I've got a nice big lump of it. If you can't get fenugreek, you can add a bit of spinach, you can add coriander leaves, but I'm going to go with fenugreek. And they're fined fresh, absolutely great. If you can't, you can get the dried stuff in the Oriental shops or the Asian stores, and you can get them, I presume, on the supermarket in the little bottles of spices. So I've put that in, and I'm going to do the same process of bringing this together using a bit of hot water. This obviously is frozen but will melt, so I'm just going to pour that straight over. Still quite hot, and that's dissolved fairly quickly. I've not put oil in, so that was silly of me. So I'm going to do that now. We've got oil, and we're going in about a tablespoon again. Teaspoon again. It's going to cook in oil, so you don't want too much. Teaspoon of oil. So you can see the chili flakes, you can see the fenugreek, you can see the ajwain, and there's cumin in there as well. So that is now ready to sit too. So they're going to sit there for 20 minutes. And as you can see with that, the warmth in there has already started to make the that's got condensation on it. So we're back here again, and our dough has been resting for 20 minutes. I'm going to turn the stove on. So here I've got a cast iron pan and the gas is on. I'm just going to heat it up. I'm just going to turn it down a tad bit because we don't want to get too hot. Get over here and start rolling. I'm going to do the plain chapattis first. Only because the other ones require oil, and we don't want the pan to be oily when we do our dry ones. So here I've just got a bit of the same flour that I've used as the base of this, the dusting, and take my dough. It's probably got a wet bottom a little bit because my water that I used in there was warm. So I've got my dough. I'm just going to give it one quick squeeze, and I'm going to break off palm size amounts. But my first one is going to be a tester, so that's going to be just a tiny bit of dough. Roll between your palm. If you make a little ball like this, just roll that around. You've got a ball, flatten it off into the flour. I should move that out of your way so you can see. And then you just roll these out. So for making these, I'm using a special rolling pin that we do use. This is my tester. It's tiny, and that's going to just go on there. And what you're looking for is tiny little bubbles that start to form on this. It will be clearer in the bigger one that I do, but for the time being I'm just going to pop that on. I've got a plate ready here for when they're cooked for them to go on, and I've got some butter. These rolling pins that I've got here, as you can see, Really thin on the outside, fat in the middle. Now I'm not sure where you might be able to get these online, but I might be able to find some links and pop them in. Alternatively, because I'm the alternative Indian, I might be able to make some that we could sell if there's enough interest. So, I'm going to start rolling these out, and you just want to, if you've got one of these rolling pins, create a circular motion. So by the time half of your chapati is rolled out, your test chapati should be ready enough. Well, that's not ready, so that's not hot enough. Go back and check on this tester. So that's cooking one side, that's heating up. So this is cooking off. That's kind of getting to temperature. That little one's just cooking. And because it's cast iron, it does take a little bit longer. Not enough to flip. So I'll carry on rolling these. As you can see, there's very little extra flour that I need. And your dough like just bounces back. So you can flour your chapatis however you like. Sprinkle some on. Now, as you can see with the rolling pin that I've got, you're stretching the chapatis out from the edges more than the middle, and this creates like a pocket. So if you use a non-stick pan, it's going to heat through a lot quicker than a cast iron pan. Back in India they would use clay, and these would be done on a clay sort, we call it a lodi. But I don't have one of those. I grab this. So my pan is ready. This first chapati here, pick it up. My first chapati, I don't know if you can see it there, it's just going to go on. I'm going to leave that alone for that to cook while I come back and roll out the next one. If it sticks to that, you can just do so. You want these all to be about the same size, so you get the same consistent shape. Now, you know, when you first do these, don't worry about shapes. My little one makes these and they can be imaginative. If you can get the circle first time round, please do let me know. I will be very impressed. That one's done. So, I don't know if you can tell here, but there's little bubbles starting to form. And as soon as they start to form, flip it over. I'm just going to lift this up so you can see what that looks like and the texture in that. Flip it over and it will start to cook the other side. One turn, that's all you need on these. Come back to this one and see the nice sort of the colours that it's cooking, and you can see the bubbles on there. Take that off, pop that onto the stove, onto the gas. And as that cooks through, that one didn't do it, but we'll just carry on and see what happens. Now you can use a spoon. This sits in my fridge. A little dollop of butter to stop them drying out. And that is my chapati. The next one is ready to go on by the time that one's cooked, and that can go on. So, same process, and I'll make as many as I can. And what you want to do, ideally, is be next to the gas so you can keep an eye on that chapati while it's cooking, because you don't want it to overcook, because they get a bit crunchy. As soon as on with your rolling. When you roll, you don't want to press too hard because you want to keep this dough quite light. And the motion that I'm doing is circular, but I'm also tipping this. That's why it's tapping, because I'm tipping it side to side. So as you can see, sometimes my circles don't completely turn out. This is going to be a super thin one because this is kind of in between. There you go. That's what we're looking for. That bubble there. See all that steam coming out. You can use tongs. I've grown up using my fingers to do this bit. So that's what I'll do. As you can see, those, that's bubbled up quite nicely. Bit of butter. Watch your fingers for steam, just to make sure they're covered. There you go, chapattis. Just check it, it's nice and bubbled. Straight back on. I don't know if you can see it on here, but in this one I've got a bit of a fold, so it's not quite cooked at the bottom in there, but when I put it on the gas it should just fluff up. That's probably about ready. There you go. There's a side that's not kind of cooked through. Right, I've burnt that side, but you can see where a bit of it is a bit lighter. If you've got too many patches like that, there, that is a bit raw. I mean, that won't hurt you, it's just a bit lighter. Too many like that, and you might end up with a bit of a tummy ache. But that's the first bit that's happened like that, so that's not a problem. You can always cut it out if you're really worried about it. One cup flour, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chapattis, and they're all sort of the same size and the same thickness. And I think they look pretty darn good. Just play around with that focus a little bit. So you can see there, we've got 10 chapattis. Nice even size, nicely glazed. So the next guys are these spiced ones. And you can see the colour that's developed on that dough there. These are going to cook slightly differently with a bit of oil rather than with the butter. You can use butter, but I'm going to use oil. And these are slightly fried because you've got all those spices in there and you want those to cook down. You want that to go straight on. So the first side with these, I'm not going to put any oil on. Oh, wait for the bubbles to come. I'm just going to do this as an example before I carry on. And then if I need to, I'll do it again. Just a bubble, you want to turn it over. And then what you can do, you can use butter. Actually, I'm going to use butter, just for consistency's sake. You could do this with oil. So I'm going to put the butter on these while they're on the stove. So that's the first side cooked, and a bit of butter. And then he stops these getting too chewy and dry. Turn it over. Ooh. Being quite cat-handed. A bit more butter. Because you want the spices in there to cook off. And that's a toasted cloth, just to get that extra oil off. And I'm going to keep going.
Emergency. There's smoke. Smoke alarm silenced in the kitchen.
You can see there, they stay quite soft. They're foldable, they're cooked, slightly uncooked that side, but that's not a problem. Well, they're not really uncooked. So we're back with a new SD card. Very last chapatti on and off. See those? Completely cooked. Whoop! Straight on the stove. Hopefully my stove is clean. But yes. So we managed to get probably about 10 Thepla, 10 Chapattis, slightly varying sizes. They're all big enough to fit into a little round pot or a jar or a plate between plates, but make sure they're airtight once they're cool. And they're done. Woo. Thanks guys.